On a wet day 9 of the lockdown, Sport SA Daily Diary is joined by Springbok gymnast Dominique Mann. Good morning, Dominic. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks, and you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. How's the
Good,
lockdown
good.
treating you down there in Durbs?
Good. As I mentioned, I'm at home with some housemates. I'm with my parents and my husband, so it could be worse. I have friends that are completely on their own, so I think I've got it good.
Yeah, I think that must be incredibly tough. I've also got a few friends that are on their own, and I can
Yeah.
actually think of nothing worse.
Yes, me as well. I think I'd go insane.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Dom, you are a Springbok gymnast.
Yes.
You started doing gymnastics at the age of 13.
Yes, which is
Were
late.
you younger than that, or?
No, I started gymnastics when I was 13, which is late for gymnastics. Normally, gymnasts start when they, basically can walk. So I had a lot of catching up to do, but I think that is kind of maybe what made me more hungry because I knew I had to catch up. So the fight was there from day one. I
And
think I think that had a big role to play. I really
absolutely,
do
I
when I think back.
mean, you hear about these Russian gymnasts and all the likes starting when they're 6 or 7 or younger or
Yes,
whatever, hitting
yes,
the Olympics at 13, and you're just
yes,
starting at that age. So,
yes.
how long did it take you to realize that this could actually be a career for you?
So there's a lot of different types of gymnastics. I don't know if you are aware of that. There's trampolining, tumbling, aerobic gymnastics, what I did. There's artistic gymnastics, there's rhythmic gymnastics, there's a whole bunch of gymnastics, and they each
Okay.
differ to different body types, different ages. So that's also quite interesting, like aerobic gymnasts like I was doing, and tumblers and trampolinists, they can kind of go on until they're older, whereas your artistic gymnast generally stop maybe early 20s these days. So, you
Yeah.
know, I was doing aerobic gymnastics, so I could have a longer career in it. But every aerobic gymnast, well, not every, but normally an aerobic gymnast starts artistic gymnastics when they're very, very young. So
Yeah.
they come into the sport very conditioned, perfect for the sport. I didn't get that. I just started when I was older, hence I had a lot of catching up to do. I
Yeah.
had a dance background and I played every single sport possible at school. Whatever I could kind of get my hands on, matter if it was in the pool, running, ball sport, whatever. I, played sports. So the competitiveness and the drive was always there. My father was a sportsman, professional soccer player. My mother was a gymnast. So, my family, I was born into a competitive kind of surrounding. I mean, we still, if we're walking up the stairs to the house, we start chasing each other and seeing who can get up the stairs first. We just like that. So, that was always there. Never had to work on that side. Um, but what I did have to catch up on and what I worked so hard at every single day was my strength, my flexibility, the coordination, the perfecting the balance, all that kind of thing. I really had to catch up
Yeah.
on, and I did. I fought and worked at it every day. Um, yeah, it was such an amazing journey.
So, what made you actually take up gymnastics? If you'd been in all these other sports, and maybe you can name a few that you'd actually played before, what made you switch over to gymnastics? And then, did you solely concentrate on gymnastics from the age of 13?
Yes. So what happened? I was a very keen swimmer, runner. I loved hockey. I did very well at hockey. I swam a bit of provincial swimming, a very little bit, but I was kind of, you could say, jack of all trades, master of
Yeah.
none kind of vibe. Good swimmer, good runner, but not tops. Um, and yeah, being from a sporty family, my parents dug out a big hole in the backyard and put a trampoline in. So I think that was a huge key factor because as they put that trampoline in, I started jumping around. Obviously, self-taught myself backflips and tricks that at that time I didn't even know had a name. I would just do a move and be like, "Oh my word, I'm going upside down," meaning like not even knowing that I was doing a backflip or a flick flack. You know what I mean? I was just self-teaching myself.
Yeah.
Um, I'm one of 5 kids, so we were always on the trampoline jumping together. my little sister and I would spend hours on the trampoline jumping and learning all these tricks. And then we went on a family holiday to Sun City, and I was jumping on the trampoline there and doing all my self-taught tricks from home in Belito. And there was a South African trampolining coach standing by the trampoline, just happened to be standing there with his kids. And he saw me doing all these tricks, and he walked over to my mom and said, is she a gymnast? And my mom was like, no, she's just self-taught and whatever. And he said, well, she's got a lot of talent. When you get home, take her straight to the local gym nearby. And my mom said, well, we're from Belito, so we have to drive almost an hour to get to a gymnasium. So my mom, was like, no, right off, and she just mentioned it when I got off the trampoline, and I was like, okay, no, you are taking me. So I begged, and eventually I got my way. My mom took me to my first gymnastics class, an hour drive away, and the rest is history. I mean, as I walked into that gym, I went straight into the elite class, and just I saw I was kind of doing everything messy and self-taught, and I saw I had to perfect everything and get to their perfection level, and I did. And from day one, that is how I got into gymnastics. Then I did artistic gymnastics for a few years. That's the gymnastics with the bar and the beam and the vault and the floor, the one you see in Olympics. I did that for a few years. I did a bit of rhythmic gymnastics, which helped with my flexibility. And then I'll never forget it. One day, the aerobic gymnastics South African head coach at the time, she came over to me and she said, Dominique, I've seen you doing aerobic gymnastics and rhythmic gymnastics. Sorry, she said, I've seen you doing artistic and rhythmic gymnastics, and you're very good, but you've actually got the perfect body type for aerobic gymnastics. So she said, go home, research it, have a look at it, and come back and tell me if you're keen to, start. She was the SA head coach. So I went home, absolutely hated it. I was like, what is this? I'm not keen for this. So she came back to me and she was like, I know you're not keen. I know you're happy in the gymnastics that you are, but just give it a try. So I said, okay. So I gave it a try. Literally a month later, I was at SA Championships and I took the silver medal. So when you are good at something, you very, very fast learn how to love it. So, I went from not being so keen to seeing, podium, silver medal, and that was it. From that day, I fell in love with the sport, and I still have the biggest love for the sport. I always will. I always want to be involved some way in gymnastics.
That's phenomenal rise. I mean, we were chatting to Stanton Fredericks the other day, and he went from playing football for the first time in matric to representing the under-21s very quickly, and you've also had an incredible rise. Tell us from there, you then went on to represent your country. That must have been an incredibly proud moment, both for yourself and for your parents.
Yes. So, so once
especially your mom, who had to drive an hour to the gym every day.
Exactly. I'm not joking. We drove every single day, sometimes twice a day, all the way. If I had a double session, I would stay in Durban, but we drove all the way there, did my training, and my mom drove me back until eventually I got old and I got my license, and then I could drive myself. But I always, went the extra mile for training. But yeah, so I represented South Africa fairly quickly. As I said, I went into the sport and did well very quickly. So I represented South Africa, and I was the solo champion for many years. And then later on in my aerobic gymnastics career, I started the trio event with 2 men. So it was myself and 2 men. We went on the floor together and we competed together as a trio. And that was the best thing I ever did for my career, because I thought I had seen the world as a solo gymnast, but when I teamed up with them, we went everywhere. We went to competitions that I could not qualify for alone. We did all the major competitions. We literally, those 2 boys and my coach, we literally went to every corner of the earth together. We did it all together, and that for me is my biggest highlight in my sport, when I was teamed up with them and we were a trio event. Yeah, and that was my parents were, oh my goodness, so proud. They encouraged me. I have a very big support system at home. All my siblings, they still are so proud of what we achieved together.
And your biggest result?
Okay, so aerobic gymnastics is a non-Olympic sport. So our Olympics is the World Games that also happens every 4 years. It happens the year after the Olympic year. So now that Olympics has been postponed, World Games has also been postponed a year. So I tried to qualify for that event as a solo gymnast and I failed. I tried again, and then third time lucky with the trio, we qualified for that event, and we went we went and competed in Poland together in the World Games 2017, which was the year that I retired because I had reached the top of my game.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
fantastic.
So it was a very emotional event.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And tell me, Dom, which was the favorite country you ever went to?
Okay, so Poland is very special to me because that was the country that I retired in, and it was beautiful, and the event was amazing, and it was a full-on games with all non-Olympic and some Olympic sports. And funny enough, some of those one of those Olympic sports are debuting at the Olympics next year, rock climbing, speed rock climbing. Okay. So we got to see that, live, and that was very interesting. That was awesome. But the most beautiful country I've ever been to, and was definitely Mexico. We competed in Mexico, and we got the full-on Mexico vibe. We got to chill by the pools, and after we had finished competing, we got to have a little bit of a party life there, and on the beaches with the other athletes. It was unbelievable. Best event, most scenic, absolutely beautiful. So Mexico.
Okay, lovely.
Yes.
And Dom, since you retired, you certainly haven't retired per se. You've taken up other forms of sport or fitness. Tell us about what you're doing now.
Yes. So, okay, gymnastics definitely has a cutoff age. Even though aerobic gymnastics goes on older than other gymnasts, we also have a cutoff age. You don't find many 30-year-old aerobic gymnasts. So when I saw my career coming to an end, I knew that I'm definitely still an athlete at heart, and I wake up every morning literally looking for the next gold medal. So I knew that I had to find a new sport. So the year I qualified for World Games, I knew that the career was coming to an end because I was going to, be at the top of, kind of reach the best competition of that sport. So I knew I had to start looking. So I started looking for different sports. I pole vaulted a bit, which was great. And I did that while I was still finishing off my aerobic gymnastics career. And that was great. I also did very well as a pole vaulter. I think my best, I got third at SA Championship. So my pole vaulting career was short, but it was also very exciting. And also kind of linked up with gymnastics, you're going upside down, you need that whole gymnastics ability. So that went hand in hand. And I thought naturally that when the gymnastics stopped, that I would go full on into pole vaulting. I just thought that would happen. But then a little curveball, my fiance at the time got a job in Dubai. And so, of course, we both went off to Dubai. It was a no-brainer. We went off there together. And when I went to Dubai, I, hooked up the local pole vaulting coach, and much to my horror, there was none, absolutely no pole vaulting in Dubai at the time. So I was very upset, and I was like, oh my goodness, what now? And I was a bit despondent. I think that year was quite a low year for sport because I didn't really know what was going on. I was like, I need a new sport and whatever. And then I found obstacle course racing. So it was a very fast growing sport in Dubai at the time. Everyone was doing it. Everyone was like, Dom, come on, you have to do it. And I was like, no. Like, no, I need to find a pole vault coach. I was trying to get a pole vault coach to come from Russia in to coach me. I was like tunnel vision pole vault at the time. And then, one day I was like, oh, you know what, I'll come and just do one event. I've been running training and keeping myself fit in the interim. And of course, all the rig, has gymnastic kind of training. So I was like, let me just do it. And it was a massive competition. Everyone came from far and wide. Obviously, with Dubai being kind of the center, everyone who was competing was from different countries. And I took 5th place at that competition, just, kind of winging it. So I thought, okay, hang on. Again, that same feeling of doing well very quickly. I thought, okay, no, I have to give this a chance. So I trained up really, really hard, went for another competition. I did the Wadi event, it was called, and I took gold. So I was like, okay, this is my new sport. Can't get a pole vault coach. And so I had to really say, okay, pole vault's over, and, focus on that. So this is how I found my new sport. I know, it's crazy.
And are you still racing?
I'm still racing. I'm still training and racing and, competing. I am at obviously a different phase in my life. I'm a newlywed. I would love to have children in the very near future. So I'm definitely at a different phase in my life. But for sure, no matter if I'm competing in the pro division, if I'm competing in my age group, I want to compete. So if I have to stop and, have kids and carry on again, I'll be one of those athletes that compete right into my age group. So this is my new sport, and this is what I see myself doing for a very long time.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you out there, and maybe you never know, maybe the Olympics will take up obstacle racing as one of its sports soon,
Yeah,
and you can go and
you
represent
never
your
know.
country there.
It's funny because
So,
when I was doing aerobic gymnastics, there was always that fight to make aerobic gymnastics an Olympic sport, and it was never going to be in my time. And I made peace with that and went to all the other amazing major competitions, and and that was fun. And now I found myself in another sport, and they're also talking, maybe Olympic Games, and I'm like, no, I can't take this anymore. No. So you know what, I'm at peace at it. If one day it becomes an Olympic sport, that's wonderful. Also, probably won't be in my time. If it doesn't, but it's so funny to be back in that situation in a whole new different world, sport people, yeah.
you mentioned earlier you're a jack of all trades but a master of none. Well, you've certainly become a jack of all trades and master of all of them.
Yes, I am very competitive, sometimes to a fault. So when I put my mind to something, I will succeed. Yeah.
So this lockdown must be quite difficult then for you, because you've obviously one that has to stay fit and have to be active. What are you doing at home to keep active other than running on the spot for 5 hours?
So I have a trampoline in the back. I set up a pull-up bar. So and that was just by accident. I just happened to put that in the yard before lockdown happened. So we have that. I also have 2 light poles in the front of my house that have a 20-meter gap between them. So I'll run up and run that up and down until I reach 3 or 4 Ks, and I kind of get dizzy and bored. I have my skipping rope. I have my yoga mat. I'm sorted. It's funny how you can actually find things to do with your resources when you have to. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
but with me, there's always, where there's a will, there's a way.
And Dom, in closing, if you had to send a message out to young aspiring gymnasts who sort of look at your career and thinking, okay, well, I would like to be a gymnast like Dom, or a pole vaulter, or even an obstacle racer, what message would you send out to them to focus on that one sport and get to the top of that one sport as quickly as they could?
Yes, what I've definitely learned in sport, I saw it in aerobic gymnastics and all the different forms of gymnastics that I did. I saw it in pole vaulting, even though I was in the sport for a short time. I saw it with the other athletes, and although I can't say for obstacle course racing because I haven't been in the sport for long enough, there's athletes that are insanely good, and I still want to learn and be like them. But definitely what I saw is that if you stick with a sport and you are consistent, and especially even if you're not the best. So I saw kids that were very talented, perfect body, flexible, strong mind, balance, everything, but they never ever reached the top because they weren't consistent. They didn't stick with one thing. I completely believe with everything I've got with every sport that if you stick with it long enough and you have a cheer and you want to succeed and you're consistent and you go to training all the time and you work well with your coach, you will succeed. I believe that, like, hands down. So I think for anybody aspiring to do well in a sport, have a good relationship with your coach, take criticism well, let them criticize you. If your parents are saying something that you don't like, listen to them because they can see something that you can't. Stick with it, train hard, don't give up. I know that's cliche, never give up, but it really is. If you stick with something, hands down, you will succeed. That's always been my trick.
I think for a competitive person, it's also very difficult to take advice from others, especially your parents.
Yes. But my mom is very strict. She brought up 4 daughters and a son. And we all, haven't put a toe out of line, touch wood yet, but we're all married now. But she was very strict, and she taught me that you must always take criticism well. And I think that was also a huge part, of my success as well. That if my coach said something to me, I didn't take 3 days to mourn over it, and I was just like, kind of, okay, let's go, let's do it. And that was also really good. Also, my husband was an Olympic swimmer. He's also taught me a lot about discipline, and he helps me with a lot of the mental side of sport as well. Even now, things that I already thought I knew, he's still helping me and teaching me and guiding me. So I'm also very lucky to have him.
Oh, fantastic. Well, it sounds like a great setup you've got going there.
Yes.
Dom, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been great chatting to you. And
thank you
with
so
the rest
much.
of the lockdown. And the obstacle
Yes.
race, we'll see you out there.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Take care.
Okay, cheers.
Join us tomorrow on day 10 of the lockdown, where we'll be chatting to Spartan coach and OCR athlete Marco Carombo.